Autobots transform and roll out.
Everyone loves it.
Princess Peach or Toad.
Like, what am I watching, man?
Ladies and gentlemen, we're here with Tales from the Film Set, chatting with awesome people. We have the one, the only, Greg Berg, and you may recognize him as the voice of Donatello and Bebop. And then also from Muppet Babies, he was Scooter and Fozzie. And he's been in a million other projects. Welcome, the one, the only, Greg. How are you doing, sir?
Well, thank you. It's great to be here. And
that's a heck of an intro right there, I got to tell you.
It sure is. I'm just flattered just hearing the news that people remember all the stuff I've done, and those are the highlights that you mentioned.
Yes, and I saw you were in the original Monsters Inc. It had you credited, and Toy Story. So yeah. How are you doing, Mr. Greg?
Right. So far, so good. Happy New Year already. It's 3 months into it, and we're hanging in here.
Spring is next week. How's
Oh, that's right.
So, but I appreciate the time
the class.
Now, Robert, in this case, I have to admit, he was born in the late 90s. He is a kid by comparison to both of us. But in this case, for me, being 50 years old at this point, obviously Muppet Babies and the theme and everything was such an iconic part of my childhood. I told you right before we started that my wife is a big fan of Muppet Babies and everything, and thanks for that. But in your case right now, when you look at stuff like, the impact that Muppet Babies had and, filling in as necessary with Ninja Turtles and all the stuff Gen Xers grew up on, thoughts on that if you got any?
Well, I do these conventions lately. I am giving it a try as to meeting a lot of the fans of so many of the different things I've done. And even when talking with the fans that show up, they're showing up either for the Ninja Turtles or the Muppet Babies or both. Those are the two highlights of main shows that I've done. But I've been doing this about 40 years and providing voices for TV, cartoons, radio commercials. I mean, as you say, age-wise, if you even go back to the 80s, there was a cereal out called Golden Grams, and they had a little icon. What do they call these guys that stand up? Yeah, an ad icon, and it was a honey drop. That they ran it mostly during the Olympics back then. So he'd be surfing or riding a skateboard or something to relate to the Olympic theme. So I was the voice of one of these cereal icons, and it ran its campaign. And that's something new when I get to talk to people at the con. Some things they may have also seen me in, and it surprises them to hear some of these things that, like you say, Muppet Babies and Ninja Turtles. I mean, that's worldwide known, and so many other shows that I've been part of that you didn't even know it was me, because I guess if there wasn't a character name to it, they still give you your pay for it, but sometimes no credit, or like in Toy Story, they would just list us all together as additional voices. So I was in the original Toy Story, the original Muppet Babies, original Ninja Turtles, a lot of originals when animation took off. So it was great being part of that. And I can just sit here and thank everybody for their participation, watching, and coming up to see me.
Nice. Rob?
So I want to talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because that's what got me to want to send you a friend request and stuff. I seen that you were in the third season and the fourth season. I know Barry Gordon was the original voice of Donatello. How did that process come along? How did you get the opportunity to also voice Donatello during that time?
Right. I was probably one of the first that replaced some of the Ninja Turtles, because further down the line, for whatever reason, they had others fill in for some of the other turtles. But in my particular case, Barry Gordon is a great guy, met him and enjoy his work. It goes way back, so I know a lot more than the average person did about him, just being from Ninja Turtles. And at the time, he was elected president of the Screen Actors Guild, the Actors Union, and he had meetings to attend and things to do and couldn't make the recording session. And that was going to be a bit of a problem back then when they recorded on a weekly basis. So the call went out to find somebody who can sound like him. Luckily, I matched and was brought in, and that's how I got the part. It lasted maybe 6-7 shows, and then we turned it back over to Barry because he started it all.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's got you on IMDb listed in like 41 episodes.
Oh, not really, not in Ninja Turtles, but then IMDb sometimes messes things up.
Sometimes they goof up.
And I mean, I've seen things on there of shows that credits of shows I wasn't even part of, and then some people might interview me and say, "Hey, what was it like working on such and such?" And I don't know where they got that information until I traced it back to someone repeating that on IMDb. Well, but no, I did. I was Donatello, the very technical kind of turtle, trying to come up with ways to catch Krang and Shredder every week.
Yeah.
And then they said, by the way, he's also Shredder. He's also Bebop's voice. Yeah. So I had to kind of dumb him down and do that kind of thing. The Turtles.
Now,
that's awesome.
In this case, obviously, since we talked Muppet Babies in the very beginning, I've often wondered in this case here, how did you land a role like that? Because that's early on in the career a little bit too. You know, was it a casting call? Did you have a connection with somebody, or how did that work?
No, basically, I came into Hollywood to do comedy character work. And as the business grew, some of the shows that I would have been perfect for with characters like Mork and Mindy or Laverne and Shirley, Happy Days, they were all canceled at the same time, and or else left the scene all at the same time. And I said, well, here I am. Now what do I do? And somebody, because they kept on with new shows, but they were more writer driven, Cheers or Murphy Brown. So they could just put anybody in there that's an actor and not really have a character as broad as what I was training for. So I did question, what do I do? Where do I go? Just like when Variety started leaving the regular round of TV shows. A lot of people practice to get to do variety work, and all of a sudden we don't see variety shows anymore. So this happened with the particular work I was training for. So I said, what do I do now? And I was told by other actors, do something with those characters for commercials or even voiceovers. And I said, where do I go? Who do I see? And names came up. And along the way, I studied many different classes with other voice people. And then I said, well, I want to go to the cream of the crop, and went and searched out Dawes Butler, who was the voice of all the Hanna-Barbera cartoons, main characters that people would recognize. And I met with Dawes and said, can you give me some teaching of how to do this? And so I studied with Dawes, among people. I studied with Ralph James, who was also the voice of Orson in Mork and Mindy. And that was for voiceovers. And a few other workshops to learn the voiceover business. And as things grew, at the time when I came into town, most of the old-time radio actors were getting roles for voiceovers. And so I was like a new kid on the block to say, well, I also want to do voiceovers, but I'm not as old sounding as they were. So then I started getting hits for young parts that people started writing into cartoons. and I still wanted to do it right. So I took my workshops where I could. And that's kind of how I got into it, being a younger voice. If you notice,
Mhm.
I was Muppet Babies, I was Young Huckleberry Hound and Yo Yogi when they started looking for a younger version of their characters. So, yeah, it wasn't the old sounding typical voice people you heard. So that's how I became a name in the business. But then as I grew up, I mean, now I'm a fuller voice and I could probably imitate a lot of the parts that were around me as well. But I was more like the young version that came in for characters like that. I
And
hope I answered your question right.
oh, you're great. You were fine, 1,000%. But it's funny because basically in the early 90s, they started to do a lot of the younger version of. So you mentioned Yo Yogi being a younger version of, Yogi Bear and everything. They had Flintstones kids. They had Scooby Doo kid. Scooby, whatever that was. So it was
Yeah.
in that era where they started to go younger. So in some ways, you timed it out pretty well in that regard because they were.
I'm so lucky. I just say it's lucky being at the right place at the right time for those particular instances. And yeah, so as I grew into it, now I'm a professional voiceover, so I can cover doing radio or TV commercials or movies or sound-alikes even. It just kept growing and growing because some people say, well, I only do one voice. Well, that's still fine because there's a guy that everybody knows who did Garfield's voice, Lorenzo Music, Lorenzo Music. And that was his only voice, and he made a career out of it as well. So it's not about doing as many voices. However, in animation, when they hire you, they can use you for up to 3 voices. So if you can alter your voice a little, you might get to be a guard or something smaller on the side, or somebody who enters a room and does something totally different than the character you're known for. But that's just a way that they save by hiring somebody who can do multiple voices as well. Yeah, because you've got people now I see on Facebook and the social media showing how they can do so many different voices and all that. Well, that's good that they do those voices, but can they act?
Yes.
So that's another thing for, I'm sure, viewers who are watching and saying, okay, I know a lot of people who do voices, but the key is to be able to act as well. So not just doing the voice. Yeah,
It's not
but
called
that's what I
voice
learned along the way as well.
Sure.
It's not called voice impression. It's called voice acting. You got to do the acting with the voices. I did want to ask you, Greg. So speaking of Muppet Babies, were you a fan of the Muppets before getting the role of Scooter and Fonzie?
Well, all the time that I've been in voiceovers is my adult life. When I was a kid, I was living in Ohio, and we had a TV set that would bring in UHF channels. So I'd get to see Sesame Street and Electric Company or anything educational for kids. And I learned from that because the Muppets weren't on every week and all, but you got familiar with what a Muppet was, what they did, and hopefully tie it in with something educational or something well-liked. And sure enough, they lasted so long to do the show. So then the Muppet movies came out. I think Muppets Take Manhattan was where the Muppet Babies originated. And that's when they got the idea, let's make this into a show with the little characters. So again, the call went out, and I was familiar with the Muppets at that point. And so I just went with it and did my audition, got a call back that said, you're going to be Fozzie Bear. I said, that's great. Then they said, you're also going to be Scooter. And I said, okay, well, I remember what I did for that. Because actually, older Scooter was Richard Hunt, and he'd be like, Miss Piggy, you're on in 5 minutes, and a very bright-eyed kind of character and a lower voice. But I kind of made him like a little whiny guy as a little kid. But hey, don't touch my computer. I'm busy working on it. and that kind of thing. So that was good enough to make a distinction that they're small and still lovable.
Now, in this case, obviously, when you look at the cast from back in the 80s, you obviously were still, we're still relatively new. Howie Mandel and Dave Coulier were obviously very new. A lot of the cast were younger at this point. Now, we had this conversation, Robert had this conversation when he interviewed Jerry Mathers on this. Barbara Billingsley, you have a veteran presence there. You have somebody who's had decades of experience. Was she somebody that you went to and, was it an intimidation thing, or was it more of a, what can I learn from this woman thing?
So the director apparently had her in mind as being the nanny. We, as the other cast, had no idea. You're not going to see her face or what she looks like. And you might be able to play off of the emotions and all that. But so all we saw were Muppet Baby level was her shins. And but having her there, she was the strong character that held us together. And all the times that we had to go, yes, nanny, and answer her checking up on us and all that, it was a thrill having her. I mean, to this day, thinking back, Barbara Billingsley was our nanny.
Yeah.
When you talked about Jerry Mathers, I've run into Jerry in the past and mentioned that we shared Barbara.
And he's like, I was there first. Rob, you got
yeah, well, of course.
So what is one of your favorite characters that you have played?
I'd have to say, as far as favorite goes, I mean, they're all lovable to me, and they all meant something. The old saying is, it's like children. Having children in your family, you love them all for many different reasons. So in case somebody came up to me off the street and said, do a voice, it just depends what mood I was in. Or sometimes, I don't think I've ever turned anybody down, but I mean, like, to be silly right now, I would right off the top of my head say, well, right now I feel like I'm talking like John Travolta, right, from Welcome Back, Kotter. And I could also do Horshack, right? Horshack, hello, how are you? This is Arnold Horshack. So, and that's the little TV running around in my head right now. And of course, you got Gabe Kaplan, Mr. Carter, the teacher.
It's funny. Whenever we interview voice actors, and Rob can back me up on this, a lot of them sit there and they'll look at the TV and just impersonate. Billy West is a great example. He learned off of the Three Stooges. He impersonated the Three Stooges, and that's how he built his own mental resume and things. So in your case, when you look at all the things that you grew up on, did anything have any influence that way as well?
Well, it was like feeding me with all these cartoons that came out, because I would watch many family-friendly cartoons. I wasn't into the action Johnny Quest or anything superheroes and things like that. But my favorites had been all the Hanna-Barbera cartoons, saying, oh, what are they going to do next, and who's going to do what to who? And then even a mix of voices with live action. Another thing that set my heart on fire was H.R. Pufnstuf. There you had characters in costume with silly voices. Again, you didn't see who was doing them, so you would think, okay, this is what each of these characters sound like. You don't see them if they're trying to manipulate the voices. Sure. And that really got me started to say, I want to do that. Because as a kid, I wouldn't say, oh, I want to do cartoons for a living, until I did see Mel Blanc on a talk show, and they made it sound like, well, this is all the guy does for his job now. Prior to the Jack Benny show and all that, they didn't show anything of his early work, but I loved him from that as well. But again, I kept trying to think original, and try not to imitate them, but maybe say things like them. But then as things developed, I mean, I was sitting with Dawes Butler, who did all the voices that I was watching growing up. And it was like a sponge. I started listening to him. And then I wound up getting to recreate a young version of Huckleberry Hound. And thank you for the lessons. And for me, just watching, he didn't say, I'm going to teach you how to do that. I just kept watching. Just like if I wanted to do Elroy Judson, he was, Dawes was in his 60s or 70s still doing it. And Elroy was supposed to be 8 years old. So I carried it on and said, if that guy can sound that way, I'm going to learn how to do it as well.
Nice.
But the cartoon, yeah.
Sorry. Did it feel surreal working with him, knowing that basically what he meant growing up? Suddenly you're learning from him. Did you sometimes sit there and think to yourself, this is actually happening to me right now?
Well, I wasn't thinking of here I am with him. I was just there thinking he's talking to me at that point, because like anything else, it was just put out there. But no, he would tell me, say this with meaning this or that. He gave me scripts to read from that he wrote and said, how would you say this? So yeah, he was coaching rather than making me learn those. So if I didn't do something right, I mean, he never did say, I'm going to teach you how to do this. He's saying, I'm going to teach you the voice business. And that's, so when people say, oh, what did you learn from him? I said, well, just watching him and then reading with him and the timing and all that goes into the other part of doing voices. Like I say, not just doing the voice.
Right. Rob?
I was going to say, it's crazy how much influence, obviously, that Mel Blancs had on so many people. Like you talking about the Jack Benny's show, that's how Jim Cummings became a voice actor at the age of 5 years old.
Really?
They had the Jack Benny show was playing, and the dad says, Jim was 5. The dad goes, you see that guy right there? And he said, yeah, that guy, he does Bugs Bunny, he does all these voices.
Oh, shit.
And right there and then he said, well, that's what I'm going to do for a living, because he doesn't have to stand in a corner. And that's what inspired Jim. Did you get to?
Well, whatever it takes.
Did you get to? Sorry.
No, I was going to say I've never worked with Mel. I did when I came out to LA in 1978. I did look up his phone number and call him because he had sent me an autographed photo, and I called to thank him. And then he says, oh, what voice would you like to hear? And again, I wasn't like, hey, I'm going to call so-and-so. I'm just saying I'm calling somebody who's doing what I want to do and not step on their toes and all that. So he did a little Porky Pig for me. And then I thanked him and said, now I'm going to go out there and try to do what he did. But again, he was at a time where he was doing characters for TV on camera as well.
Sure.
Yeah. Do you remember, I know, like you said, you're Bebop and you were Donatello. I know Jim Cummings was also Shredder and Leatherhead. Did you get to work on the booth with him at all?
I wasn't with him for the Ninja Turtles, but I think they brought him in for a character on Muppet Babies when I think there was a time when they brought in outside talent as well. Okay. And one-time thing. I know working Yo Yogi, which I was probably in about 10 episodes, but throughout they brought in various people to be parts also within the show. So I had a chance to meet Artie Johnson, who I used to watch as well on Laughing, doing his characters. And that, stuff like that, where I'm in the presence of greats that have been there longer than I even thought I'd be doing it. And here I was meeting Artie Johnson or anybody they brought in for the show. Yet alone, I was working with Don Messick doing Young Boober. And Greg Burson was Yogi Bear for anytime they used Yogi Bear. So that was our little crew for that show. But yeah, I mean, I've done commercials in the past. This goes way back when I was starting, where they needed young voices in a particular commercial. I did a gas station commercial or some sort of fuel commercial with Leslie Jordan, who eventually did his own sitcom and is well missed now as well. But I started to think, wait a minute, I did a commercial with him. So along the way, you're into some lucky moments like that.
Nice. So if I may, in this case here, post that, obviously you had a long career in the 90s, early 2000s and everything like this. Talk a little bit about that experience, you know, if the system changed at all, if the world changed a little bit. Now I know a lot more stuff is done remotely through Source Connect and things like that. But did you notice any kind of, any kind of changes in the industry from, like, say, the 80s to the early 2000s?
Well, definitely, because I did come out here to do acting, and I went wherever I can to learn how to apply what I can do. I worked at the Comedy Store behind the scenes, answering phones, working the door, sometimes emceeing, and thanks to them for keeping me employed at the time. I met a lot of the comics or got to see them. I didn't become super friends with them because that's a whole other group of people you're talking about. But as things grew, I had to learn how to do the voiceovers, because that was a time when, again, character-driven shows for TV were waning. And so I studied, and then as time went on, yes, the industry grew because there were just a handful of young voice people who really knew what they had to do. And that's why we got our calls. And then the business started changing too, because we used to be able to do, if you got hired for a show, 26 shows a year, 26 weeks straight. And then the next 26 weeks, they just rerun them one more time. And that was your job. But as time grew, and as it is now, it's totally different than it used to be, because now you are given 4 hours time to do your show in case you have more projects to do later, or so it doesn't wear you out. But it's just a whole lot of fun now to be able to do a lot more. But yeah, the business has changed. Also, for people who are into voiceovers and wonder what it's like doing animation voiceovers, they used to bring groups of people in as the cast to read off of each other and create the show and the scene and add things if they came up with stuff. So these days, it's changed a whole lot more since maybe the pandemic, where people are asked if they have a home studio and to work from their house, and they will just match up the other voice people with them through a voice connection like that, like Zoom or however they do that. I don't know anything about that. I just know about doing voices on microphone, and somebody gets it and they turn it into a show.
Nice.
It's very complex, but some people know a heck of a lot more technical than I am. But yeah, the overall business of voiceovers has changed, and I'm going with it. I mean, I didn't know I can do TV commercials until I did them. I thought I could do them, and then sure enough, I got hired for them. I was the voice, like I said, of the Golden Honey Drop for Golden Grams. But then 2000 came along, and there was cable TV. I was seeing a commercial I was part of on that, which was for Kikkoman teriyaki sauce. I was hired as Kikkoman, and I would be a claymated figure from the Will Vinton Studios put it together, and who did like Nightmare Before Christmas. Those greats, and they did a series of commercials for Kikkoman, and I remember seeing it on cable TV because that was about the time Carol O'Connor died. So they did a marathon of his show, All in the Family and Carol's Place. And almost every break, they had a Kikkoman commercial. So I saw how they overplayed it so much then. But then their company changed, and they said they're doing a different campaign. So I wasn't Kikkoman any longer, but I do have that as another credit that some people find surprising because, as I say, the main characters I'm known for were Ninja Turtle cartoon, Muppet Babies. I was Yo-Yogi's cartoon. Going way back the early 90s, I was on The Simpsons doing characters that had no names. So I did that for at least 5 to 6 years. And again, since they didn't have names, they didn't give me any kind of credit like that. Eventually, I broke through and did a guest star spot on The Simpsons, the episode where Bart ran away from home on Thanksgiving. So people who have seen that will now recognize me from that. I was the radio announcer and a homeless guy and a security guard chasing Bart. Among things, because like you said, this has been a long career. I've just been very blessed and look forward to whatever next is offered to me.
So I know you said you've worked with Don Messick and you got to meet him. Did you get to meet Casey Kasem?
It's funny. When I first came out here in the early 80s, people had said, they had heard me reading and said, you know what, you sound like a young Casey Kasem. Well, I said, oh, that's great. I'll get to do commercials just like him and all that. And I started buying that until somebody took me aside and said, but he's almost on every commercial, so nobody's going to like that, hearing a sound like that again. So I said, okay, I'll just try to speak normally. And that way, do my own original voice of a Midwestern. I was actually born in Brooklyn, New York, but I lost the accent. And so as far as the Casey connection, so people would say that. And then eventually, since I had a little act at the Comedy Store, I used to do some of the voices that I got laughs from. And one was Casey Kasem. And I would put him in a situation. And one day I was doing a charity show and Casey was in the audience, as well as Tony Danza and a few other celebrities at the time. And I kept debating, should I do the Casey routine and let everybody else have a smile from it or what? So I threw it in there and I said, here's Casey Kasem doing this or that. And I said, hello, I'm Casey Kasem and here's the next show, or whatever. And everybody clapped. And after it was over, Casey's wife came up to me, Jeannie, and she said, I want you to meet Casey. And Casey, do that introduction you used to do on your radio show for him. And he said, no, I'm not here to do radio. She said, oh, just do it. So maybe he'll have a routine. And so he says, oh, this is Casey Kasem playing the Stats of Wax that are, get your back. Or and he had some routine like that. And I said, oh, I'll think about it. But again, the funny is where I put him in different other situations. But I did get to meet Casey. And then along the way, I met his daughter and I told her the story, how people had compared me. And so I did the voice for her. I said, hello, this is Casey Kasem, and we're back. And she says, oh my gosh, that's my dad. I said, well, that's kind of how I hear it and what I do. And the funny thing is, I've been doing this for 40 years or more, and I've never once had to replace his voice for anything, whether it's the casting people or the people who submit me. Nobody ever said, oh, Greg can do a good Casey Kasem. He's got to land something that they needed him for. But no, it's never happened. So maybe somebody out there watching and say they want to have a sample of Casey in the background or something. That's
Scott
when
Innes.
they bring somebody like me.
Yeah.
Rob, you got anything?
I was gonna say, yeah, Casey Kasem's always been one of my favorites because my favorite character growing up is Shaggy from Scooby Doo.
Well, of course, if you wanted Casey and his characters doing Shaggy, oh, it's just like this. So again, nobody's ever heard me do it enough to get to who needs to hire somebody doing Casey. And yet here I am being told I was Casey all that time and not once trying out because they did replace him in a commercial where he didn't want to do and they used somebody else. And I never got
that was Scott Innes, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
I don't know.
But we've had Scott on the show. Scott was he did the '90s and early 2000s of Shaggy and Scooby, and I got when I first met him. I do voice impressions sometimes too, and it's like Zoinks, man, like buddy, old pal, like Scoob, like where are you, dude? So it's kind of a mixture of Casey
I'm not even trying it.
like Matthew Lillard.
Oh, good job. Yeah. I mean, knowing Casey's voice, it did sound like he had an overbite. And I don't know if anybody includes that when they do him. Because he was like talking from the back of his throat and you can hear his back teeth clench,
Right.
or have that little thing in his front. Kind of like George Carlin. Some people say George Carlin sounds like this, and they don't realize George, I think, had a little tongue inflection that when I hear people try to do George Carlin, and I think Eddie Murphy has a sound too that places his tongue in a certain situation. So good people that do it know that.
Yes.
But that's a little inside observation I make when I hear something like that.
I just got this question sent to me just now. I want to see, what is your favorite Fozzie joke?
Well, I don't even think the writer. I know Hank Saroyan, our director, wrote a lot of the episodes, but I don't think he put anything funny in there that would be enough to put a routine together, but they would just make something up because he's always getting hit by tomatoes and all. And so nothing stuck with me as far as his jokes. I know he would tell them, and when I do an appearance, I would do Fozzie, and I might throw a joke out there, and my jokes were a little bit more understandable. Well, okay, let's see. How do you fix a broken pumpkin?
How?
Do you know?
No.
With the pumpkin patch. Pushing through the tomatoes coming, hitting him in the face and all that.
Hey, you'll be here all week. Make sure to tip your waitresses.
Sure, I can do this for youth groups and things like that. I'd appreciate it. But I mean, that's just like samples I could give them. Fozzie Bear, the bear that tells the jokes. All right. Because at cons, I do get people coming up to me saying how they watched Fozzie and it made them want to become a comedian as well. So whatever they got from it, I appreciate that. And but yeah, if you're gonna do it right, make sure it's funny.
Nice. Rob,
Is there
anything else?
Yeah, I was gonna say, was there anybody that started around the same time as you that you were working in the booth that then you found out years later became like a big shot? Like, is there anybody you saw like in their earlier days of their career?
People I can say they're on the right track or whatever, because I still get lots of fan mail and people saying how they can do various characters. And I say, go with it, see what happens with it. If that's where you're looking to do what you do. I mean, I was always taken by the stars that they brought in and put me in with, because at one point I was part of Hanna-Barbera's 50th anniversary, I believe, and they gathered all the characters I watched when I was little, and here I am standing in the middle of them, doing a quick line or two as Baba Louie and Augie Doggy. And I was standing next to everybody who did Jane Jetson and, you know, just everybody from the Hanna-Barbera group that could show up. Magilla Gorilla, I mean, Don Messick, and here I was doing what I could do as those characters. So seeing people, well, yeah, if you go to a workshop or something, you might see somebody and say you have something there, but that's more like how I see it. I mean, I'm not in a position to come up with names of people that I want to suggest to somebody because that's never come up. But when I hear somebody doing voices and all that, I mean, I was taken aback by Jay Farrow, who was on Saturday Night Live, and I heard his collection most recently because I heard he was an impressionist, but I got to see him work on TV and said that guy's great. And then you got Frank Fiendo, and these are people that are voice people, or I'd say, you know, voice comics or impressionists and all that. But when you look at me, I mean, you could close your eyes when I'm in the room and you would think those people are there, which is a great compliment. I'm not there to look like the person. And you know, you've got the people that do the De Niro's and all kinds of people that people know currently. Some don't even have personalities, so that's kind of why it's hard to do a lot of current people. You got people that do politicians or mix those in, but I did. I'm not a big politician fan, but I was hired by Oliver Stone's company, and Oliver directed History of the World, and they needed the audition was for Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter. So I think I can do it with justice. So I went in there and said, "Hi, this is Ronald Reagan, and I think everybody can do his voice, but this is a way to use." And then they said, "Okay, let's do Jimmy Carter." And I just kind of threw it in there and just went, "Well, I think Jimmy Carter sounds like this, and he's from Georgia, and this is what I think it would sound like." And then I get a call. I said, "Oh, did I get the Reagan part?" They said, "No, you got the Jimmy Carter part." So they might say, "Hey, do a character of a certain known personality, but don't do it dead on." And then there you have another character.
Nice. Rob, you said you had one more?
Yes. So you talked about you're starting to do the conventions. Do you got any coming up anytime soon that you want to advertise?
So depending when this is airing, I do have a convention coming up in Hagerstown, Maryland on April 25th and 26th at the Hagerstown Community College. And that's the 4-state comic convention. We're signing items and pictures and meeting people, talking about voices. And that's for April. I had one scheduled for May, but then they folded. So I couldn't look forward to it, but I was hoping to do it. Then we will have one in July that's on the books right now, only because they gave me a contract to do it. The others might just be talk. So we have one in July, which will be Hartford, Connecticut in mid-July. So if you look forward to that, depending where you are in the country, I do get a lot of fans saying, "When are you coming to our area?" So it just depends where there's a con that I can apply to, because I'm basically not in a total anime performer. I've done anime, luckily enough, but nothing that I've turned into a profitable market yet. And because I'm trying to find like an anime union show, and that's the difference. A lot of these people do anime, and they're mostly for non-union shows. So, because I was part of the Avatar TV show.
Yes, I saw that.
Yes.
That was anime. I did Flint the Time Detective. That was an anime show. And The Cat Returns was an animated movie that we did the voice replacements on, and that was anime. So those are the three that people really into the anime scene would find something to do with me in it. But yeah, the Hagerstown coming up in April 25th and 26th, and looking forward to that.
There is a perfect person. I'll be sending you a contact information that I think we can get you into some good conventions. So,
Oh, super.
yeah.
Yeah, that's why I say I'm kind of new at doing the conventions. Some people are saying, oh, come to our place, but they're not in the position of booking or hiring. So,
yeah. Because what I know you'll. Sorry, I was gonna say I know where you'll succeed is we'll get you at if we can get you at some of the conventions that that like Barry Gordon and all the Turtles have been doing, because like me as a collector, if I know there's two voices of Donatello, I'm gonna go bring a Funko Pop and have both Donatello sign it. Like I have multiple. I'll send you a picture later, but I have items that are multiple signed by multiple people. If it deals with Donatello or Leonardo, so I could see you doing pretty good at a Turtles convention and stuff like that. And I know a perfect guy that's been doing stuff like that. So
terrific. Well, yeah, if anybody knows somebody involved with conventions that they want to suggest me, because I do have a good write-up. If you enter online AI or whatever answers, they mention how everybody's been pleased with having me as a guest. That's among some of the things I do, because I do have I don't have a website, but I do have email that I get your letters from, which is idovoices@yahoo.com. And if you have questions, I would answer them if I can do that for you. Again, sometimes I'll pop up on Muppet Central, where you're actually hearing from one of the people involved with the Muppets themselves, where I try to set some answers straight when people write there, and sometimes get to talk with the cast members. Nice. This is all kinds of stuff that I have.
What social medias are you on, Greg?
I do go on Facebook, but these days I've been holding back as much as I used to be, because it wasn't doing what I originally intended it to do when I first joined, which was share enjoyment of projects going on and ideas, and hey, why don't you do this and that, or hey, we did this, and news like that. Now it's you've got people sneaking with political comments and pictures of food and stuff that have nothing to do with the business. So I do get your name. I'm Greg Berg on Facebook. There are other Greg Berg, so you'll know me just from voice work that I've done. And don't believe everything you read either, I say, on IMDb, because there are other actors that sound similar, and sometimes people have sent me photos and things to sign that the other actors did, and I have to thoroughly write them back and explain to them I'm not who you thought I was. But most of my credits are pretty accurate, either on that or behind the voices. Probably not as many credits on that one. I try to check them out when I can and write in.
Well, last thing before we let you go, what is your favorite color, Greg?
Favorite color right now would be purple.
California. Yes. Well, on that note, guys, this is the legendary one and only Greg Berg, and we
Thank you
are
so much.
out of here. Tales from the Film Set.